All right, welcome back everyone to the webinar overviews. We will be discussing the new program this year, which is the FY 2022 Distinguished Early Career Program Funding Opportunity. As Aaron mentioned earlier in the day, this is DEFOA 0002556. As has been mentioned before in other presentations, please enter your questions through the GoToWebinar question box. And we have Julie here to ask those questions in real time. Any questions we don't get to, we will push to a written format and we will get back to you. So the objectives and priorities of the Distinguished Early Career Program are similar to those of any other program that the funding opportunities cover. It's DOE-NE's mission to advance U.S. nuclear power in order to meet one of these three energy needs. That's enhancing long-term viability and competitiveness of the existing U.S. reactor fleet, the development of the advanced reactor pipeline, and implementing and maintaining a national strategic fuel cycle and supply chain infrastructure. All applicants to this FOA must have a strong tie to one or more of these focus areas. And DOE will support high potential early career faculty to provide stable support at a sufficient level and duration to develop impactful researchers and educators. So as you look through the funding opportunity as it comes out, you'll notice there's going to be descriptions of each of the major DOE-NE programs and a description of DOE-NE's mission. This FOA is inclusive of all of those topic areas. Important dates for the Distinguished Early Career Program are we are planning an FOA release in September of 2021 with the full application due date on January 12th, 2022. This FOA will only have a full application. They are going to be cooperative agreements issued by DOE. The award size is planned for $500,000 total over 3 years. The expected budget is $2.5 million for the program. Expected number of awards is 5. And the official FOA can be found on grants.gov, and you can apply through neup.gov. The requested funding may vary year by year to accommodate real or expected needs of the proposed research and education. The average early career award supports the principal investigator, research staff under the PI's direction, equipment, and other necessary costs like materials, supplies, travel, those types of expenses. Co-PIs and collaborators are not allowed for this funding opportunity, and the applications must be focused both on research and education. So this is a key point of this funding opportunity, is that it has equal parts research and education, and the application should integrate those two concepts into the plan. For eligibility, the eligibility requirements are untenured assistant professors in a tenure track at a U.S. academic institution who are in the first 3 years of their appointment as an assistant professor. Cannot be funded. You cannot be funded with an early career award from other federal agencies. The scope must have a different scope from the work already funded by any organization. That includes NEUP projects or projects funded from an outside entity or an outside governmental organization. You must be in an eligible position according to these eligibility requirements by the application due date, and no individual can apply more than 2 times. By application, what we mean by that is that the application has gone through and gone forward for review. So if you were to be dismissed for non-compliance of some documents or something like that, that wouldn't count as an application. I've laid out the application documents here. These are the expected documents from the funding opportunity announcement that will be published in September. You'll notice, for those of you that are familiar with the CINR process, that a lot of these are very similar to the R&D full applications for the CINR FOA. There are 3 that are different. So Of course, I'd welcome any conversation about the other documents here on this list, but the three I would like to focus on are the project narrative, the career objective statement, and the department head endorsement letter, which are specific to this FOA. So the project narrative includes a dedicated section identifying the integration of research and educational activities. As I mentioned before, please pay special attention. As you'll see in the review criteria, those hold equal weight in the consideration of these awards. The career objective statement outlines the PI's research interests and educational priorities and how they align with DOE NE priorities. The endorsement letter from an academic or unit department head is an endorsement not only of the PI's qualifications, but also the department's commitment and focus on nuclear energy research and education. So that letter has two purposes, and please pay special attention to that as you work with your department, your academic department head, to have that letter, that endorsement letter written. The review criteria is outlined below. All applications will be evaluated in the initial review stage for relevancy to DOE NE mission. So there isn't a dedicated relevancy review per se in the merit review consideration. You'll notice that the merit review consideration or criteria has three criterion. Those are focused on the first criterion, advancing the state of knowledge and understanding in nuclear energy science and engineering research areas. Second topic or criterion focuses on the integrated research and education plan. And the third focuses on qualifications and potential for leadership within the nuclear energy community. From a contact information perspective, technical and general application submittal instructions should be directed to nup@inl.gov, and any procurement questions can be directed to our procurement contact at DOE Idaho. Andrew Ford, and his email is listed here. Once again, before I conclude, the FOA should be coming out in September 2021. Full application due date is January 12th, 2022. And with that, I will open up for any questions.
Okay, first question. Are incoming faculty for fall 2022 eligible to apply? Specifically, in my case, I have an assistant professor appointment, which I have deferred to fall of 2022.
So there will be specifics that come out in the funding opportunity, but refer back to the statement I made before about you need to be in the position. You need to be you need to have the appointment start before the full application is due. So if you meet those conditions, then you'll be eligible to apply to the Distinguished Early Career.
I would just add, Andrew, that some universities do allow people that are not in the position as yet to apply for funding. So if your university is going to allow you to serve as a PI, even though you're not an employee, I would find that highly questionable, but that's really up to the individual institution.
Yeah, so similar to the CINRs, and thanks, John, for that. Similar to the CINRs, the institution will be the applicant, meaning that they'll be the applying institution with the specific PI as the named PI for that application. So, so that's a good point.
Are non-US citizens eligible to apply?
Let's get back to that one. Sorry, that was.
We'll have to get back to you on that one. I think that's been discussed in a variety of situations.
Right.
Does this application count towards the quota of 3 current and pending PI/6 current and pending total?
Yes, it does.
Do early career lab staff qualify for the Distinguished Early Career Program, or only university staff?
It's only university untenured assistant professors in the first 3 years of their appointment.
Can a PI apply to the early career from both DOE NE and DOE BES in the same fiscal year?
So the
But
current,
they can only accept one. I don't know, we haven't run into that situation as yet, obviously, but they would only be able to accept one of those awards. We can't have it twice.
right, so yeah, I guess we haven't run the process yet, so we haven't necessarily considered all of the intricacies there, but the idea would be you're only allowed to win one of those early career awards to be eligible to apply for DOE-NE.
Are postdocs eligible to submit to this FOA?
So once again, I think as John mentioned, it really depends on what your status will be, what appointment you will have as the due date comes up for the FOA. So so once again, untenured assistant professors in the first 3 years of their appointment are the conditions for eligibility. And not saying that a postdoc couldn't move into one of those types of positions before the due date. But a postdoc outright?
No, the postdoc by themselves, no. It has
No.
to, they have to have an assistant professor tenure track position to apply at the time of applying.
The next question is there also a pre-app deadline?
There is not going to be a pre-application for this funding opportunity. So the FOA will release and the due date will be January 12th for the full application.
Can you explain more on why the restriction is to only the first 3 years on the tenure track?
John, do you want to take that one?
It's for early career by definition, to stimulate in the first 3 years when faculty are developing their research programs. Beyond that, everyone should be applying to the regular program as well. We've had many assistant professors untenured receive awards through the NEUP regular process.
Are subawards to collaborators up to 20% allowed in these proposals?
So there shouldn't be any co-PIs or collaborators. This is a single PI focused on both early career development and education.
That's correct. No co-PIs.
Will early faculty from an MSI HBCU be given special consideration?
That is a question that we can clarify later. I know that is a priority for the CINR funding opportunity. And at this moment, I can't remember what kind of provisions we have in the early career funding opportunity in that regard.
I think that's still in review, Drew, and
okay.
We can get an answer back to them on that.
Right. Thanks, Aaron.
How is this FOA different from the CINR FOA?
So there's 2 components that I see as different. The first is the restriction to early career faculty. It's a relatively narrow window for early career faculty to compete for these awards. The second point is this is not solely a research funding opportunity. So we want the focus to be both on research and education, and that's a key component that's different than the CINR FOA. Anything you'd like to add, John, in that regard?
No, I think that's correct. It's not tied to a specific work scope either. So the work scope or the research program, the education program is defined by the applicant. Has to be within the DOE-NE mission now.
How will the focus of this DOE-NE Distinguished Early Career Award be different from the one in DOE BES Career Awards?
So,
well, go ahead. You'd have to go ahead and look at the criteria for their award. There's some similar things and some different things. Theirs is a much bigger program, includes national lab people. This is focused just on assistant professor tenure track faculty members. The BES is a broad range of science outside of nuclear energy as well. So it's a much different animal. There is some individual differences of the two, but this is focused on DOE NE mission work.
Yeah, and the BS program, as I understand it, I don't want to misrepresent that program in any way, but my understanding of the program is that it is research focused, not research and education focused, which is a major difference.
Exactly right. That's another difference between the two.
Okay, can a junior faculty member apply if they are currently in their third year, such as they have only been in their position for 2 years? Or if awarded, can the early career award start in their 4th year after having completed 3 full years?
If they're in their third year at the time of application, January 12th, they can apply and get the award later. If they're in their third year, I guess they would be in their 4th year at that point. But yeah, it's at the time of application is the critical date.
Is a green card holder allowed to apply?
That's a similar question to the one that that we said we would get an answer back to later about citizenship status, and so we'll defer that question until we have better guidance on that.
Right now, I believe that our general CINR, there is not a U.S. citizen requirement. There is for fellowships, of course, and those kind of things, but not for a PI on our program. So we're going to have to take a look at that and review that, Aaron, and others to make sure consistent with leadership in DOE NE.
Yeah, we'll get the right response back to everybody.
Yep. Thanks everyone for their patience with that one.
How much funding or percent of funding would be allowed to be spent on capital equipment in one of these awards?
You know, we don't have a specific percentage that we've identified in the funding opportunity. I think an important component of that aspect is taking a look and considering the merit review criteria and understanding what the priorities of the program is. So, you know, I think if that's a reasonable request that supports both the research and the educational outcomes that the PI is trying to get to, I think that can be considered. But it's just a word of caution about trying to balance the purpose of the funding opportunity, and you know, equipment and other things like that are really dependent on the research area. So I don't think there's a specific area where we want to restrict based on a percentage amount.
Well, and also realistically, those in their first 3 years of a tenure track appointment at a university are going to have a sizable startup package at their university, which a lot of which can be spent on equipment. So much of the equipment, realistically, or I mean, looking at it from a point of view of the university, should already be there, paid for by the university. If they're asking for a large fraction of this to be equipment, I would question the viability of that program.
Would you recommend that the PI invite senior faculty or lab staff personnel to be in advisory capacity on one of these proposals?
John, what's your perspective on that? I hadn't necessarily
I'm
considered.
not sure what an advisor is. Listing them as advisors, no, I don't think that's going to be important at all. It's going to be the commitment by the department head and a single PI what their actual research is. Having a bunch of other people listed as supporters or anything like that will be irrelevant, won't be considered.
Do we have an estimate of when the awards might be announced?
The awards will, at least the target date to announce those awards is in the spring. So you can think earlier than the CINR awards, but there's no exact date on an expected expected release of the awards. My guess would be sometime in the April timeframe.
Well, we have, most of our announcements are in June, right? I mean, in terms of, so hopefully not beyond that.
Is an engineering type proposal preferred?
Again, it's as long as you're working in a DOE any mission area, and make it relevant to the DOE any mission, and that means nuclear energy, and make it relevant, you could apply even in a more basic science area. It's not excluded whatsoever, but again, you have to take a look at the kind of work that's done in DOE NE and the kinds of programs that are supported.
If a PI was awarded, would they be restricted from applying or accepting future career awards such as NSUF, DOE, and DARPA?
So what I do know is what our eligibility rules are, which it would preclude you from, if you had one, it would preclude you from accepting ours. I'm not aware of all the different, every single early career award and what their eligibility requirements are. So please refer to those as they come out and make a determination in that regard.
Could letters of support from other institutions be provided to support this application?
No, what we're interested in from a requirement or required document standpoint is the endorsement letter from the department head. So anything that's not on the application required document list shouldn't be added to the application.
For the education part of the proposal, does it focus on your university education or general education efforts such as K through 12, publishing, etc.?
I would say that it's really focused on the integration of the research with the education would be the ideal thing. It's not a separate program necessarily. If you're doing outreach and service, K through 12, et cetera, that's nice. But I think the true meaning here is to try to capture the research and how it's integrated into your curricula and the impact on students at the university, et cetera. Now, if that happens to be nuclear energy education in the K through 12 space, I guess that would be okay. However, DOE NE mission is pretty, it's not, the emphasis is not on education itself, especially in the K through 12 space.
Okay, will the COVID-19 related delay in research justify a PI in their 4th year to be qualified for this FOA?
No, not as of right now. This is just starting out, so we don't anticipate any exceptions to any rules at this point.
For the research component, is there any guidance on preference for basic versus applied science?
I think you have to look at the programs in the DOE NE portfolio, the kinds of projects that have been funded in the past, the emphasis in the various program areas to see what's been funded. If you can make a case that very basic radiation transport or nuclear data is relevant and critical to the needs of DOE NE, and you're the one person in the country to do it, I think you should make that argument.
And as John talks about what's been funded in the past, that is all available on NEUP.gov. So you can look through the variety of different programs and the variety of different research areas which kind of slide along that scale.
Since the work scope will be open and there's no overlap with other CINR applications that is allowed, does this mean we can only develop a new independent project?
I don't think it's that tightly bound. If you're applying to one of the current work scopes, they tend to be fairly narrow in out of the whole scheme of things. So this could be, you could have a little bit of overlap with a work scope area, but not exactly the same application. I think this is the opportunity you have for defining your own path. If you want to apply to a work scope, you should do that, but this is a much more general kind of approach to looking at development of a career at a very early stage.
And you know, the key point there is what we're trying to avoid is an extremely similar research plan on the distinguished early career with an NEUP proposal or application that you put in. So so that's really the guidance there is, it's not that it can't overlap with a work scope, but just that you're not putting in you know, the exact same application in two different funding opportunities.
Can more than one PI apply per university?
Yes. These are going to be, like I said, these are going to be applications made by the university, but there's no restriction on the number of individual PIs that qualify based on the eligibility requirements to applying.
If your university has hired a number of faculty in the last 3 or 4 years, yeah, you're going to have more than one. If they haven't, then you probably won't.
What is the application page limit?
The application page limit for, I'm assuming the question is related to the project narrative. It will follow the kind of standard DOE NE page limit of 10 pages, up to 10 pages.
Okay, everyone, that's all the time we have for questions today. We will post the answers to any other questions that are posed here in the Q&A on the NEUP website with all of the webinar recordings and everything else. Please, if you have any other questions, you can always email neup@inl.gov with your questions.